Name is Annette Harris, the business owner, author, and financial educator. If you've been following me for a while, you'll know that I've encountered many situations that have aided me in building a sustainable business. And I want to share a few tips with you today on how I have done that being an author. So I do have a event that's coming up, and I want to work with you and others on identifying how you can build a career being an author, but also building a sustainable career as well. So I wanted to share with you a couple of tips on how I've done that, how you can do it too, um, as a aspiring author, as a business owner. So there are a couple of things that I have done to do that as an author. So first, I want to touch on how, as an author, your platform is more than just words, but a passion that you can use to build that sustainable career. As authors, we pour our hearts and souls into our stories. But building that sustainable career in writing requires more than just talent. It demands a strong financial foundation. A lot of the things that we do demand that strong financial foundation, whether or not it's with your personal finances or with your business finances as well. You want to develop that holistic approach in how you are managing your financial situation to ensure that it's successful and that you are able to turn a profit on your venture. So, today I want to discuss a few key aspects of navigating the financial landscape as a writer. So, I wanted to review with you how you can understand your income streams, intellectual property, and also how you can diversify your income and explore some of those avenues. So, let's discuss those key aspects. And the first part of that is royalties. So when it comes to royalties, this is the bread and butter that you have as an author. And if you are interested in traditional or self-publishing, with each of these types of publishing, there are royalty fees that you will receive for having a traditional publisher publish your books, or if you are a self-publisher, how you are going to receive the fees. And as a writer, it's very important for you to understand the different royalty models that there are. There are percentage royalty fees, there's flat fee royalty fees, and they differ across the different publishing platforms, whether or not that's traditional, whether or not you're self-publishing, or whether or not you have audio books that are available. There's also retail royalty fees, which are royalty fees that you'll pay to get your book published in bookstores, like those large retailers. Typically, the fee is a percentage of the book's retail price. So, for example, I'll tell you this, like, you may set a price for your book. Say your book is $12. You're not going to get $12 for publishing your book. It's going to depend on whether or not it's hardback, whether or not it's paperback, how many pages your book is, how much color your book has. All of that is going to depend on the royalty fees that you receive when you publish your book. Also, if it's in person, you may receive a different type of royalty fee as well. As a children's book author of the Mommy Can You Teach Me series of books, I've identified that the various publishing platforms that are available, I receive different royalty fees from the publisher. So if I go to KDP, for example, I'm going to receive one royalty fee as opposed to publishing my books via Ingram Spark. If I have a traditional publisher who publishes my book, I'm not going to receive that same royalty fee as I would had I self-published. So if I use a traditional publisher, or if you use a traditional publisher, you may publish your book for $12. Let's just go with that. If you use a traditional publisher, that means someone who is publishing a book for you, you're going to receive between 10 to 15% of that money back as a royalty. So that $12 book is probably going to profit you between $1 to $1.50 per book. For that traditional publisher, it could be hardback, it could be paperback. So pricing your books, if you are selling with traditional publisher, is very important. And you also want to consider those shipping costs when it comes to shipping your books to your customers when using a traditional publisher. As a self-publisher, like I am, you're going to receive a little bit more money back than with traditional publishing. So I published my book through initially through ADP, KDP, and Barnes and Nobles. The money that I received from publishing my books was doubled what I would have received had I went through a traditional book publisher. So publishing my books through Barnes and Nobles and KDP, I was able to receive $2.89 per book as opposed to $1.50 per book or $1 per book had I gone with a traditional publisher. So again, you have to weigh your options and say, what's best for me when it comes to publishing my book? And do you have the time to market your book to get it into the hands of readers? Because that's the main thing that you want to do. You want to outweigh the cost of traditional publishing versus self-publishing to see what makes sense for you. There are different platforms when it comes to self-publishing your book. Like I said, I use Ingram Spark now, but I originally used KDP, and there are limitations when using KDP as a publisher. Now that I have moved on to Ingram Spark, I'm not able to publish my digital books the same way that I did when I was with just KDP. So with KDP, when you publish a book, you have 5 days where you can let your digital book go for free as a promotion to kind of like increase that engagement with readers or future readers that you have. Because I offered my book through KDP, now Ingram Spark is saying, okay, there's some limitations. You have to wait 1 year until you can promote your book the same way that you did with KDP. So had I known that, I would have went through Ingram Spark first and not used KDP or published my book independently via Barnes and Nobles. Knowing what I know now, I would have went directly to Ingram Spark. So Ingram Spark was able to get my books to Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, Apple Books, Google, eBay, many of the retailers, even Walmart. I never would have thought that my books would have been available on Walmart. So that if you go online now, you could see my books on Walmart. Publishing just through KDP with Amazon, I was not able to get my books in Walmart stores. Now it's available all throughout the country, even internationally, if you have access to Walmart. So going with, even as a self-publisher, going with a publisher like Ingram Spark was able to increase the trajectory and the availability of my books on multiple platforms. The other thing that I did was, as a writer, it's important for you to market to your local community or any bookstores that are available. So what I did was, when it comes to royalties, because that's what we're speaking about, like how can you earn the royalties and what does that mean for you? With local bookstores, there's two things that I did. As an author, I have given some of the bookstores in my local area, one is Cafe Resistance, my book. And I signed an agreement with them that says, here's two of my books, and with these books, that let them sit on your shelf for 6 months. And after 6 months, if my books haven't sold, then give them back to me. But they sit on the shelves for up to 6 months. And when my books sell, then I'm able to receive that profit. So Cafe Resistance will receive a portion. And with bookstores, it's either a 70-30 split or a 60-40 split. With Cafe Resistance, it's a 70-30 split for me. So when my books sell, they receive 30% and I receive 70%. So I track that meticulously with them to know that this is where a portion of my inventory is sitting. It's not in my possession. I haven't sold it, but eventually I will. So I ensure that with my books, I keep that in my possession, knowing that that's a part of my inventory, even though it's not with me physically. When my books sell, the Cafe Resistance owner reaches out to me and she says, your books have sold. I'm ready to pay you your percentage. Then she pays me the percentage for my books, and then I restock the books that I have with her. Now there's other bookstores that are available and they will buy the books from me. So one of the bookstores that I gave them my books and I said they paid me for them. So they paid me 70% of the books, they kept 30, and then that book was 100% theirs. They, off the top, I was like, okay, here's 3 of the books from my series that you have, and they paid it and it's gone. It's out of my inventory. I caught that, I tracked that as a sale because it's gone. I've received the income for it and I've made a sale. So in the future, if they want to have my books on the shelf, once they sell the book that's in their inventory, then I provide them with more books and I receive those royalty fees up front. So that's one way as a self-published author that you can get your books in stores and earn royalty fees for your works. Again, marketing to those local bookstores. As an author, you can also do speaking engagements. So when you do speaking engagements, then you either do these free or you can do them as paid. But when you do speaking engagements, you're able to have a table that has your books available. Negotiate those deals with the event vendor if they want you to be there as a speaker. Okay, if I'm going to be a speaker, what can I do as an author? So I have an upcoming event and they have a speaking engagement. And they were like, you know what, Annette, I want you to be one of the authors. Since you are published authors, can you educate our authors who inspire to be writers? And I said, yes, I will speak at this event, but because I didn't register, can I host a table? So they said, yes, we'll have a table available for you to sell and market your books. And I'm able to speak at that event for free. So no, they're not paying me to speak, but as an author, I can still get the word of my books out there. When you also have books available, you could speak at schools. So you're able, if you speak at schools, I suggest having a pre-order form available. As a children's author, that's critically important. Even if you're speaking at larger events for adults, send out those order forms so that you can have orders in advance of the event so that you can sign books once you come on site after the event. It's very difficult. I've been to a lot of events where after the event, they say, come and purchase the book from the author that spoke. And a lot of people bypass that table. So if you're going to an event, you're speaking at an event, send that order form out in advance so that it encourages that the attendees of that event will purchase your book. Finally, there's workshops and classes. Once you publish that book, you've made it. You're an expert in your field. Solidify that and offer other authors workshops and classes on how they can become published authors and show others that they are an expert in their field. So that's a little bit about royalties. Now, once you do become a published author, it's important for you to budget and save. As an author, you need to track your income and expenses. You know, this may seem redundant because I talk about this all the time when it comes to your personal finances. Track your income and expenses for your business as well. You can use a spreadsheet, you can use a budgeting app just to monitor that cash inflow and outflow of your business. You can also use QuickBooks if that's something for you. I don't use QuickBooks. I'm a traditionalist. I use Excel when it comes to tracking my business expenses. But after each purchase you complete, track what you've spent on your inventory as an author and how much income you have coming in. So after each one of the events that I go to, I track the income that I have compared to what I spent to attend that event. How much was that event fee? How much did it cost for me to order the books? How much was shipping? How much was taxes? All of that is tracked. Then once I attend the event, I compare that to all of the book sales that I have. If you're like me, you may use Square, you may use Stripe to have individuals pay for your books, or you may use cash, but there are fees when you're using Square or Stripe. So you want to track what you're paying for those fees and expenses for using a payment vendor and that income and compare it to ensure that it's being profitable. As an author, you also want to create a budget because you just don't want to constantly spend your money and not know that you're making a profit. So allocate funds for your writing related expenses, whether or not it's for shipping, for storage, for events, for illustrators, for editors. You want to ensure that you have a budget for every single category that you have and say, this is what I'm going to spend within that category. And you don't want to go over that category. It's just like your personal budget that you have as well. When selling your books, you get that first sale or a ton of books that you want to ensure that it makes financial sense. I was asked, personal story, to participate in a local event. It was $500 for me to participate in that local event. And my books cost $12 a piece. They're children's books. They're not that expensive. So for me to participate in a $500 event just to break even, I would have had to sell 41 books. For me, that didn't make financial sense because typically when I go to events, I sell about 30 books. So I would have taken a loss had I attended that event. But had I not created a budget and tracked my income and expenses and prior purchases, I wouldn't have known that. So as an author, there's lots of events that are out there, and you want to make sure that those events that you attend make sense. And are they going to provide you with a profit? For example, are you going to a horse show where the genre that's being sold there is not relevant to how you want to sell your books? Are you an author that talks about bullying, or an author that talks about finances? There was a local event that was a Black event about cowboys. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. My book is about ethnic children learning about finances. I was like, this is a great event for me to attend. There was also an event that was a kickball event. It had kids at it though. So I was like, this makes sense for me. There's going to be kids. My books are geared towards children. So I sold a lot of books at that event. And that event was free for me to attend through a community partner that I connected with. So when attending events, you want to make sure that it aligns with your goals and the book that you are selling to make sure that it makes sense. You also want to save for future writing goals. So don't just look at, okay, I have this event coming up and I need to have the books on stock for this event. You want to save for future writing goals if you plan to write additional books in the future. So you want to save for future projects, whether or not it's marketing, whether or not it's shipping, whether or not it's paying an illustrator or an editor. You want to ensure you have those funds set aside for that future event. Also, I'll say this, although I'm not a tax expert, you do want to consider taxes when it comes to starting on this venture of becoming an author. So I'll say this, consult with a tax professional and understand the tax implications of the different income streams. When you have royalties, when you have speaking fees and business expenses, you will more than likely be paid by check or cash. And I'll say this, it's essential to track that income because depending on how much you'll earn, you may have to pay business taxes. And if your expenses exceed, if your income exceeds your expenses or you break even, you may come out on top and not have to pay anything with business taxes. But it's essential that you maintain accurate records to help your business in the future. I'll say this, when I'm applying for grants, I have to provide my tax return at times. And it may be tempting for you to say, okay, I'm getting paid in cash for this. I'm getting a check for this. I'll just put this money to the side. I don't have to show how it has impacted my business. But as you are applying for grants, if they ask for your tax returns and they see that your business is not profitable because you had that money in cash and you didn't account for it, you may lose out on a grant. So as much as possible, be honest with your business. I'm saying be like 100% honest, especially if you're applying for grants, so that you can receive those grants and show that you do have a viable business, whether or not it's being a creator, a writer, and showing that when you apply for that grant, you have a reason and a purpose and a passion behind it. There are actual humans that are writing that grant. I'll say for me, I've received 2 grants so far. One was a $5,000 grant from the Black Women's Round Table when I first started my business. Then I received one from the Juneteenth celebration where I was promoting my books. And it was, again, they're all about financial literacy. And they said, okay, how are you impacting the community? But with that, I also had to provide my tax return to say, I really am selling these books. I do have a clientele and audience and people who really want these books to teach their kids more about money. And had I taken all that money I had from events, they would have seen that, okay, this person probably doesn't have a viable business. So again, keep accurate records when it comes to the income that you're receiving for your business and maintain those detailed records for income and expenses for tax purposes. You can always explore deductions. Deductions are my best friend. Those deductions could be related to the fees that you pay for events. It could be for office space. It could be for office equipment. For me, my computer crashed one day, and as a financial coach and as a author, I need my computer and I need a desk for my writing purposes and to tend to my clients. So I was able to take that as a tax deduction because it was office furniture and it was office equipment. My computer cost $1,500 because I needed great space. I needed a second screen for my computer, and I actually needed a desk to put my computer on, this desk right here. So I use that as a deduction or a business expense that kind of like helped me level the playing field when it came to the income that I was receiving. So as a writer, you want to ensure, or a business owner, that you take advantage of those tax deductions and that equipment and expenses that you use to make your business run. Again, it's going to help you out in the end when you are applying for grants or you're showing others that you have a viable business for them to provide you with those funds. There is not a limit on how much you can spend on business expenses, but you want to ensure that it is they're viable and that you are using them for a business purpose. For me, I work in my home office, but I'm not able to use my home office as a deductible expense because on this side of my office, I use it for my business and my writing and my financial coaching. But during the daytime or when I'm not working in my office for my main business, I use the other part of my office for my main job. So I'm not able to use that as a home office expense deduction. So again, like I said, it's talk to that tax professional that who files your taxes for you to see what can you take as an expense. I even do mileage sometimes when I'm doing notary type things for my clients. So there's lots of things that you can take expenses on. I do expenses for my internet, for my phone bill, for my website. All of that, those are things that you can use to account for expenses. Even professional development. If I have to maintain my certification as a financial counselor, I use that as well, and I'm able to put that on my tax return to kind of like level out that playing field when it comes to the income that I'm receiving. So next I want to talk about intellectual property. So your writing as an author is your most valuable asset. You want to, and I'll talk about this a little later too, you want to ensure that you copyright your work. My husband is my editor for my work, so we keep a lot of our things in the house, but we also have an illustrator for our books. And they say this, once you write down your work, it's copyrighted. However, once you get your work to the editor, the illustrator, anyone that is not you, they could essentially kind of like steal your work. So you want to ensure that you copyright your work because copyright is your fundamental right as an author. It grants you exclusive rights to your original work. And as soon as you ink it, it's copyrighted. Like I said, even on my blog post, you'll see that it says 2025 copyrighted. I update that every year, but you don't want to take a risk of not registering your work. Registering your work with the Copyright Office provides those significant legal advantages, including potential statutory damages and attorney's fees, because you may have to initially pay it out of pocket if someone steals your work, but you're able to recover those fees if your work is copyrighted. And copywriting costs between $45 to $65, and you can file it electronically with the Copyright Office online. There's also trademarks. My characters in my book are Destiny and Trey. And these are the main characters because it's me teaching my kids about money. And I also have a little cardboard cutout of that, but many authors that I interact with in the local area, they also have plushies that they use as characters for their books. And they have copyrighted those plushies that they've created to say, okay, these are the characters in my books. After the illustrator's drawn them, I don't want anyone else using the likeness of this. So they have trademarked those characters. I don't know if you've seen recently, Beyonce has gone through over a 10-year battle with trademarking Blue Ivy, because I'm pretty sure it was like a wedding company that had Blue Ivy. And it took her over 10 years to finally get Blue Ivy trademark with the trademark office. So if you have characters or if you have plushies that you have, logos, consider trademarking it. So let me go back. Copywriting, you can do that 100% on your own. There's a video tutorial on the copyright website that shows you exactly how to submit your work as a copyright. Trademark, I suggest getting a trademark attorney for that. They can help walk you through the process. It's going to be very advantageous for you to go through that process with them, just to ensure that your brand, your logo, your characters are protected. Finally, I want you to know a little about the importance of plagiarism. It's very important as an author to create original work. AI is out there. I've used it a lot to kind of like enhance my writing. I even use it in my workplace as well to kind of help me craft it. But once you put your work into an AI machine learning platform, your work is out there on the internet. You can put your work into the AI platform and say, enhance this book to make it more readable and engaging to those who read the romance genre. But once you put it in there and it analyzes it, there's a high likelihood that your work could show up in another author's work. So again, that's why copywriting is so important. So just be very careful with AI and plagiarism. I use Grammarly to help me with my punctuation, and it can also be a plagiarism checker for you. So you may think, oh, this is my original work, but you may have seen it somewhere else. So you can use Grammarly or any of those other platforms just to check your work to make sure it's not plagiarized. You also want to ensure that others are not plagiarizing your work. I recently had 3 of my books sell, and I was like really excited that my book sold. But then all of a sudden, they were my digital copies of my books, but then all of a sudden the sales disappeared. So I was like, okay, so someone must have purchased the digital version of my book and then they read it and they returned it. I don't know if they were an actual purchase, they read it, what happened with that. But if your book is on a digital platform, even the paperback version or hardback version, someone can plagiarize your work. So again, that's why it's important to be copyrighted. If you have already published your work, you can still send it to the copyright office for them to copyright it before it's published. It's done, it's out there. But again, it's more important to get your work copyrighted before you actually have a publication date to ensure protection. That's copywriting. So another tip is finding a publisher in Illustrator. So I talked at the beginning of this about traditional versus self-publishing. Again, I am a self-published author. I like to do a lot of things on my own. I don't like to be bound by the constraints of others. So again, I am a self-publisher. With that self-publishing, there's various options that you can use. You can use KDP. Again, like I said, as a beginner, I use KDP. Then I use Barnes and Nobles. So I had KDP and Barnes and Nobles separately. But then I was like, let me go to Ingram Spark because I want to get my books on multiple platforms. If you publish with Amazon KDP, it's not going to get your books into retailers. If you publish with Barnes and Nobles, it's only going to be with Barnes and Nobles and KDP. If you publish with Ingram Spark is a national publisher and they will get your books into multiple retailers. Ingram Spark got my book into Walmart Online. It got my book into Amazon, which before, when I originally published, I did it independently. Ingram Spark also got my book into Barnes and Nobles. With that one publisher, it got my books into multiple retailers. It got my book into eBay. It got my book into, I think it was Rakuten. There's multiple places that it just sent all of my books, but even Apple books. So I was trying to get my book into Apple Books and Google, but by publishing through Ingram Spark, that national platform, it got my books everywhere. So now my books are in over 15 different platforms. I would have never thought that, okay, my books is on Walmart. Like how do I do that? And through Ingram Spark, I was able to do it. Now I did have to figure out how to figure out the formatting for it. So each platform has different formatting on your book size, the bleeds, your cover, what all that looks like. So with Barnes and Nobles and Amazon, I was with Amazon, I was not able to publish my hardback because it had to be a certain number of pages. But with Barnes and Nobles and Ingram Spark, I was able to publish the hardback of my book. So my hardback book, Mommy, Can You Teach Me How to Invest, is, how many pages is it? I think it's about 42 pages. And on Amazon, oh, it's 46 pages. So it's 46 pages for this book. With Amazon, it had to have more than 46 pages for them to publish it. With Barnes and Nobles, they published it with the 46 pages. But with Ingram Spark, they published my hardback and got the hardback on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Walmart, all these different retailers without the same requirements that Amazon had. Basically, it was limitations that Amazon had. So definitely ensure that when you do publish your book, that you use a retailer that can get all the types of, I would say, mediums that you want your book published on in one fell swoop. Again, it sent it out to all the things that I was trying to do. The only thing that Ingram Spark was not able to do was get my book on the Google store. So I did have to do that separately to get the audio book and the paperback version on, not the digital version, on Google Store. So those are a couple of things that you can do when you become a self-publisher to, again, understand the cost and responsibilities of each one. One thing that I want to mention is that when I did publish with Ingram Spark, I had to pay a $50 fee. So with my husband being the editor and me reading my book multiple times, there was one typo in my book. And it was a minor typo, but it was something that, okay, I really want children to understand finances. And this one typo just really threw the book off. So I corrected the typo. And with Amazon, I wouldn't have paid anything. You can upload as many times as you want, and you don't pay a fee when you upload the multiple versions of your book. But with Ingram Spark, there's a timeline because you don't pay to upload your book for them. I had to correct that typo and I had missed the cutoff mark. I think it was 60 days after uploading my book. I had to pay $50. So that took a little bit out of my profit, but I wanted the book to be correct. And that $50 I had to sell 10 more books for that, because with my books, I profit about $5 per book. And to correct that issue, it took money out of the profit that I would have eventually made from selling the books, and I eventually made it back. But it's very important to be very careful when you're publishing your book and ensuring that you have an editor who double checks and triple checks everything. Needless to say, there's always going to be a typo in a book, and you're going to have to correct it. No matter how many times you check it, you may see a period that's off or a comma that's off. So just be mindful of that and have that budget set aside for those expenses. Next, you want to find an illustrator for your book. So when finding an illustrator, there's one author that I'm connected with, and when she's creating her book, she sends her book out to 3 illustrators and says, create this concept for me, draw it on a page. And they send her a drawing back, and she picks the one that she likes best. My personal story with an illustrator is that I connected with an illustrator. I know a local author who published a book, and I connected. I was like, I love the way the characters look, and I was like, I want to go with her. She's another local Black artist, and I was like, I want to give back to our Black business owners. So unfortunately, it didn't work out. So I signed a contract with that individual, and I was able to get 3 pages made. Um, and it just didn't work out. It We were supposed to have all the characters and the backgrounds created in 6 months. It was 4 months later, and I had 3 pages drawn. She had the cover of my book, the back cover of my book created, and that first page. And I was just dissatisfied with her. So when you're looking for an illustrator, look at those online platforms. Again, like I said, the local artist I'm partnered with, she sends her book out to 3 different illustrators and says, not her whole book, just a portion, and says, create this concept for me. And she picks from those. And she also looks at various things like their speed of getting a response back to her, and the clarity of the picture, and them understanding the concept of the characters that she wants them to create. So definitely be very careful when you're finding publishers and illustrators. When you are publishing your book as well, again, like I said, there's various platforms that are available. You want to consider what ISBNs you're going to use. Many of them, Ingram Spark, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, will give you a free ISBN. Go to Bowker, Bowker. I knew that I was going to create a series of books, not just one, because I'm just very ambitious like that. And I'm sure you are too. I went to Bowker and I bought 10 ISBNs. It was a lot cheaper than buying just one ISBN. I bought a block of 10 because I knew I was going to need an ISBN for my digital book, for my paperback book, and for my hardcover book. So if you are publishing a book, you want to get it digitally. So you're going to need at least 2 ISBNs per book. So go to Bowker and purchase those block ISBNs, because if you purchase just or use the free ISBNs, you aren't able to transfer those books from platform to platform. If you have a free ISBN from Amazon, you can't use that free ISBN on Barnes and Nobles. You can't use that free ISBN on Ingram Spark. It's there, so your book would have multiple ISBNs. So consider put having ISBNs that you can use that are yours. So I have 6 books in total. I have the Mommy Can You Teach Me About Money series of books. It goes from teaching kids about money, saving, budgeting, all the way up to investing for teens. I have The Great Money Quest, which is the story of Trey, who his mom is teaching him about money, and they're going around the house learning about money and the different values of money. And then I have the ABCs of money for little spenders. So that one's kind of a little bit more diverse. It brings in all different races, genders, boys and girls, and it talks about giving, how they can give money, how they can spend money, and the joy and value that it brings to others. So I started my publishing journey in December of 2023. And so I'm currently working on another book for all ages that incorporates all of those concepts in together. So that's why I'm sharing my story with you all. You know, I've gone through this journey. I've gone through the trials and errors of being a self-published author. So just want to give you those tips that I've learned throughout my journey. And, you know, as I become more experienced and learn more, you know, I learn more tips from other authors as well. Even when it comes to contracts, you know, there's publishing contracts, there's illustrator contracts, and there's licensing agreements. With the illustrator that I was just mentioning, we had an agreement to purchase for her to illustrate my book in 6 months. At month 3, she had only created the front cover, the back cover, and one internal page. Luckily, the agreement that I had with her, the signed agreement, was that I would only pay her for the illustrations that she produced. So I said, you know what? I'm going to cut my losses. Let me figure out how I can get my book illustrated. And I ended that agreement with her. It was a very trying relationship, and it held up the production, the publishing of my book. So she refunded my money. Luckily, she was an honest business owner. She abided by the agreement that we had signed together, and I paid her for those 3 books. So there's different ways that publishers will ask for you to pay them. So they'll either ask for you to pay for the full project up front, or you may pay them page by page as they produce the illustrations for your book. My book was full color. Every single page had a character and different situation. So I paid her up front. It was actually a great fee. It was $600. So again, like I said, she gave me that money back once we ended our agreement together, and I had to figure out another way to get my book published. So again, just be very mindful of the contracts that you sign when it comes to publishing your book. Another author that I've connected with, she wanted to sell her book. She wanted to have her book printed with a different printing company, but because she had signed a publishing contract, she had to stay with that publisher for 2 years before she could switch and then go the self-publishing route. So again, if you go with traditional publishing, you're bound by the agreement and the resources and the printing presses that the traditional publisher has. So just be very mindful of contracts and venues and various things like that. So working in human resources, I'm always reviewing contracts and the stipulations of those contracts. So I kept that in mind. So with future illustrators and publishers, it's going to be a page by page thing. I'm going to put my book out to various illustrators and say, okay, now I know, show me what you can do, before I actually sign that agreement. So I want to talk to you a little bit more. We talked about publishing, diversifying your income, but I also want to just say how you can build your brand and grow your income. So I attend a lot of events, not as many as other authors. There's authors that I'm connected with that attend events every weekend to get their books out. I don't do that. I'm very selective and choosy about the events that I go to, because I want to ensure that I'm maximizing my profit, but also, keeping my mental sanity when it comes to having some enjoyable time on my weekend. Yes, I want my books to sell, but I also want to ensure that I have that balance when it comes to coaching my clients. I don't want to neglect my core business when it comes to promoting my business. So first thing I want you to do when it comes to building your brand as an author is create a professional website. I neglected to do that at first. I used my main business website. It's very important to have an author website for your books. If you have 1 book, if you have 2 books, build that website for your books so that when readers come to your website, they know what you are offering them. What's your passion about as an author? Yes, you may have a core business, or you may not have a business. Maybe being a writer is the first time that you're venturing out. Build that website to enhance your business and get your book in the hands of readers. From there, you can build an email list to continue to engage with future readers. If you're attending an event or if they're coming to your website, have that subscribe form that's coming up so that they can subscribe to future emails. If you're publishing a book in the future, if you're attending an event, whatever that is, build that email list. What I do when I attend events, I don't have it here with me, but I have a sign up form. I have a raffle. So whenever I go to an event, I have my raffle. They scan a QR code and they are able to enter a drawing for a monthly raffle where they're able to receive 4 of my books. So it's the Mommy Can You Teach Me About Money all the way up to investing. So while they're at my table, I stand there, they scan the raffle, I talk to them about the books too. And I end up getting them to purchase 1 or 2 books, but they also enter into the raffle and I get their contact information. I get their email address, I get their phone number so that I can contact them in the future if they win the raffle, because there's 1 winner a month, or if I want to promote my next book to them. You also want to use social media. Use that social media power. Many authors, like me, are very introverted. I've become more extroverted. I'm like an ambivert now. But utilize those platforms like Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. TikTok is back, y'all. So you can continue to use TikTok to engage with your audience and share that behind the scenes content of you creating your craft, and promote your other ventures when it comes to your books. It's very challenging as an introverted author to get on social media, but you have to know that others are doing it as well. You see the same commercials over and over and over again, and you sometimes get tired of them, but you keep watching them. So if you use social media, you can do the exact same thing. Continue to promote, because you're going to catch that one person, because if you don't promote your book, no one's going to see it. So get out on social media. Like I said, use your website as a hub. Create that professional website that showcases your book. You can create online courses and provide insight about coaching services or other offerings that you may have as an author. And then collaborate with other creators. I published my book, like I said, back in 2023. And one of the authors, I was on Facebook in a writing group, and they were like, who's in Jacksonville? And I was like, I'm in Jacksonville. So a couple of us start, saying, hey, we're in Jacksonville. And one of the local authors here was like, hey, I'm doing an event for Black Children's Book Week. Who else wants to attend with me? And I was like, me. So it's me and one other author named Jasmine. The other one was Seal Spence. And we went to Black Children's Book Week. She bought 20 of my books to give to the children who came to Black Children's Book Week. Had I not done that, I wouldn't have sold 20 of those books. I wouldn't have gotten 20 of my books into the hands of youth. We all 3 had different reasons on why we're writing books. Mine was on children's finances. Hers was on STEM. The other individual, Jasmine, she has a cochlear implant and a hearing disability, and so do I. Just had surgery on my left ear to get my hearing back, but I still have hearing loss in this ear. So again, because we connected and collaborated, we were able to promote our books, and there was no competition again, because we all had 3 different things, reasons on why we were promoting our book. So again, collaborate with other creators and don't be afraid of competition. You're going to go to many events as an author. There's going to be a lot of people selling things, but no one's one thing that they're selling is going to be just like yours. So that's how you build your brand and your income as an author. You have to get your book out there, get your passion out there. It's all about inking your wealth. You have to ink your way to wealth, because if you don't publish that book, no one's going to know anything about it. If you don't promote that book, no one's going to know anything about it. You want to build that sustainable future, and it takes time and effort for you to do that. You're going to be patient, be persistent, and be consistent in your efforts. You want to embrace that entrepreneurial spirit. You want to experiment with different offerings. You got to figure out what works for you, and don't be afraid to step outside of your comfort zone. This is how you're going to diversify your income streams and leverage your author platform effectively. I am going to an event this Friday, and I don't know about y'all, but we're going through like a weather storm. It's going to be 30 degrees, but I'm going to be out there. I'm going to be out there promoting my books, promoting my passion, so that I can show others why financial literacy is so important. you as an author also want to show them why your passion is so important. So you have to sacrifice and be consistent and persistent and impatient and a little bit cold as well. And know that what you're pouring your heart into, that writing, um, is going to help you build that sustainable career. So this is where understanding where beyond the page becomes paramount to your writing success. So if you have any additional questions, you can always reach out to me on harriswealthcoach.com. You can also check out my author website at author Annette Harris to find out more about my books and my journey into becoming an author. So thank you for joining me, everyone.